Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Maltego Essentials series. If you are new to this series, and especially if you are new to Maltego, I encourage you to go back and watch the previous episodes. If you have been following this series from the start, you will by now have learned about the different editions of Maltego, namely CE, Classic and XL, and how installation and activation works, how to run a transform, move around the graph, and changing layouts and views to make your job easier. The next videos will dive a little bit deeper into specific aspects of Maltego, and in this video we are focusing on some of the important additional information stored with each entity. But first, let us create a new graph and run a few transforms to get into the right frame of mind. We are going to investigate the most recent edits of the COVID-19 Wikipedia page. We might be interested in trying to figure out if someone has the right credentials to edit such a page or where a particularly eloquent editor is from. Wikipedia exists because of this ability to moderate the content and the users who edit the pages, so we are going to make use of their API to query their databases. Open your favorite browser and find the COVID-19 Wikipedia page. Select the URL at the top and hit Command or Ctrl+C to copy it to your clipboard. A neat little trick that Maltego has is the ability to recognize the type of content in the clipboard. If you open up your blank graph in Maltego and simply hit Command or Ctrl+V to paste the value to your graph, Maltego should automatically create a new URL entity. Alternatively, you can click the Paste option at the top left of the Investigate tab. If, however, Maltego made a mistake in identifying the type of entity, you can use the Change Type menu to correct the mistake. But in this case, Maltego is spot on. Notice how the entity is showing only the website part of the URL as opposed to the entire link to the web page. Do not worry, this is just to keep the graph clean and the information is not lost. The first thing we will look at is the property view. You might have noticed this before, but when you select an entity, on the right hand side of the window there are both a detail view as well as a property view showing some additional information about the selected entity. You might have to select the property view to switch to it. With the URL entity selected and the property view open, notice the short title in italics. That is what we refer to as the display property, the property that is displayed on the graph. The URL property in bold is the main property, the URL we copied from the website. All entities have at least a main property and could potentially have many other properties, of which one can be allocated as a display property. In this case, there is another additional property, the title, which is currently not populated since we manually created this entity. A transform returning the URL entity is likely to also add the title of the web page into that property. Just to bring this idea home completely, notice that if you go to edit the value of the entity by either pressing F2 or double-clicking on the text, the full URL is shown. In other words, the main property is also the one you would edit by default, though even this behavior can be changed by advanced transform developers. Don't worry, we won't go into that kind of detail in this series. Next up, let us ask Wikipedia who has been editing this Wikipedia page. We do this by running the To Wikipedia Editors transform. Since this is a hot topic at the moment, it is most likely that your results will be different than mine. So pick a random editor and see if you can follow along with what I am doing. I'm going to choose the random Canadian user and look at some of the other pages that he or she has been editing by running the To Wikipedia Edits transform. It seems like this person has been involved in the talk pages of Wikipedia, where editors are discussing the merits of an article and making some contributions to other more political pages. In addition, he or she also edited a page recently titled Coronavirus Recession. I will select this entity to look at it a little bit further, but you will have to pick one from your list to follow along. On the right hand side we see the familiar properties of the URL, and as mentioned before, the title has now been edited as well. The transform writer chose to also use the title in the short title field instead of the default website, as we saw with the URL entity we started with, since in the context of Wikipedia, this makes the most sense. We are going to shift our gaze upwards a little bit and have a look at everything in the detail view. At the top, we can see the type of entity, an internal type ID which is important to transform developers, and the value of the entity. There is a section below that showing the relationships of this entity with its neighbors. In this case, there are only one incoming relationship, and that is from our random Canadian alias. Some entities will also have what we refer to as display information, and in this case there is one with a title that simply reads info. Under the info section, the transform writer can add a bit of HTML that gives the investigator some useful information. Here we see a table with details about the user who made the edits, the timestamp when the edit was made, how many bytes the edit changed, and the comment that the editor was required to add to his commit. In this case, he or she is commenting that the template being used is incorrect and a fix was implemented. Below that, there are links to the actual Wikipedia page, and if it is available, the revision page, so that you can see exactly what was updated. Other transform developers can choose to add other kinds of information here. A great example is from our hub partner CipherTrace, who provides information about cryptocurrency transactions, addresses, wallets, etc. They can alert you, for example, if a specific Bitcoin address is suspicious, and in the display information of the Bitcoin entity, they will give you a risk score, say 7 out of 10, and a description of why that score was given, such as that it has been involved in transactions with a known terrorist organization. Back to our example, I want to highlight the last important information on the screen, and that is the generator detail. For all entities, you will always be able to see the generator detail, which tells us how this entity was created. In this case, we see that a source entity, random Canadian, of type alias was used to run a transform called to Wikipedia edits, and the date and time when the transform was run. When entities are merged together as discussed in previous videos, the generator details section will contain a list of all the ways that the entity was created. It is worth mentioning that if you look at this graph, the number of results has always been exactly 12. We got 12 Wikipedia page editors, as well as 12 pages that one of them edited. Remember that this is because the result slider is set to 12. This kind of investigation is a great example for why you might want to upgrade to Maltego Classic so that you can get many more results each time you run a transform. That is it for this video. In the next video we will talk about adding some more information to your entities through notes, bookmarks and attachments. Until next time, cheers.